Mic's on, don't forget, as appropriate.
Okay, welcome to the public portion of the Chatham Township Committee meeting on September 13th, 2022. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Mic's on, don't forget, as appropriate.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So this past Sunday marked the 21st anniversary of September 11th. Chatham Borough put on a beautiful ceremony honoring the anniversary, and I would like to take a moment to honor the 13 lives from the Chathams that were lost that day, to honor the first responders and others who lost their lives on September 11th, 2001. The Chatham residents we will never forget are Donald L. Adams, Dennis Buckley, Paul S. Gilby, Gary R. Haig, Anthony P. Infante Jr., Robin B. Larkey, Christian H. Maltby, Philip W. Mastrandria, Peter Mautos, Thomas Strata, Kenneth J. Swenson, William R. Tiesti, Peter M. West. Can we now bow our heads and take a moment of silence? Thank you. All right. Moving on to Chatham Township Police Department held a fantastic forum on the car thefts that are occurring throughout our area. A few important reminders to protect yourself and our community are as follows. Never leave your keys or key fob in your vehicle. Always lock your car doors and make sure your windows are closed. Never leave your vehicle running while unattended. Park your car in well-lit areas. Remove your valuables and garage door openers. Keep your attached garage doors closed and entrances to your house locked. Install motion detection lighting and security cameras directed at your driveway. Make sure your vehicle's tracking system is activated if your vehicle has one. And if you see something suspicious, call 911 immediately. If your vehicle is stolen, call 911 immediately. Report the theft to your insurance company. And most importantly, do not try and recover your car on your own. Chatham Township is committed to increasing awareness of suicide prevention and wishes to recognize the importance of suicide awareness in our community. Suicide claims nearly 45,000 lives in the United States each year, with someone dying by suicide every 12.8 minutes. It is now the 11th leading cause of death in New Jersey. A suicide attempt is made every minute of every day, resulting in nearly 1 million attempts made annually. Chatham Township lends its support and encourages its residents to participate in the 4th annual Out of the Darkness Walk being held this Saturday, September 17th at 4 p.m. at Cougar Field in Chatham Township. This annual event has attracted hundreds of walkers from around New Jersey, including our own residences, and has raised more than $500,000 for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Residents can learn more and register at afsp.org/Morris County. This leads right into a new award we have started, the Citizens Award. Our first one will be going to 3 high school students who have started Chatham Teens for Mental Health. Chatham Teens for Mental Health is an organization consisting of teenagers in the Chathams who are dedicated to removing the stigma around mental health and increasing awareness of suicide prevention. The group advocates for increased conversations among teenagers and their peers and parents and guardians around the issues of mental health. Earlier this year, they hosted a community forum on suicide prevention and are now helping to organize this year's Morris County Suicide Prevention Walk this Saturday at Cougar Field. Receiving the Citizens Award tonight are high school seniors Molly Ritter, Catalina McBride, and Olivia Shihadi. Did I say that right? Okay. It's the same name. Molly serves as the president of Chatham Teens for Mental Health. She leads the Corpus Christi Chargers, a monthly program for teens and adults with special learning needs, and serves as a student ambassador and peer leader. Catalina serves as vice president and is a member of the National Honor Society and the World Language Society. Olivia serves as secretary for Chatham Teens for Mental Health and is a member of the National Honor Society and the World Language Society. Catalina and Olivia are also members of the Play Unified Club, which supports the ECLC school. Chatham Township thanks these three fine young women for all their great service to our community, and we wish them well in their future endeavors. Do you want to come up and give you an award? Okay. Additionally, I want to announce we have open seats on various boards and committees in our township. If you are interested in volunteering in town, please reach out to Greg and we can find the best board or committee for you. And finally, I'd like to wish a happy Rosh Hashanah to my Jewish friends and neighbors. Can we move on now to, what do we got now? The approval of the consent agenda. Do we need to pull anything out?
And just so everyone's clear, what we're approving is the order in which everything's on there, and this is the opportunity to pull anything if anyone wants. We'll have a motion later for the actual substance of the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now we are going into, reports. Committee Woman Ewald, are you available?
Yes,
Okay.
find my reports. The senior center is back up and running. They took a break at the end of the summer. Their Shred fundraiser will take place on Saturday, October 22nd at the Chatham Middle School from 9 a.m. till noon or until the truck is full. The center hired a new director of programs. I mentioned that before, and she's been very busy starting developing new classes, workshops, entertainment opportunities like salsa dancing, writing workshops, stamp collecting. She has very creative ideas, and as a result, they're already seeing a number of new participants to the center, which is awesome. They continue to provide support groups free of charge to participants covered by grants. So please feel free to take advantage of that. They started another grief support group, and they have another number of people join that group as well. If you're interested in any of their programs, the Senior Center, you can call them at 973-635-4565. The Municipal Alliance Committee has their meeting here tomorrow at 9 a.m. for residents who are interested in attending. And also tomorrow, they had let me know that also tomorrow evening, 6:30 to 7:30, in line with some of the things that were discussed earlier, Morris County Officer of Emergency Management and the Center for Family Services are giving a presentation on warning signs of suicide, risk factors, supportive services, and resources available in the Morris County community. It'll be a hybrid event, in-person and virtual attendance. Zoom options are available. To register, you can go on the Chatham Library, and they'll have the information to register for that program. What you had mentioned, the Out of the Darkness Walk. The Cultural and Diversity Celebration of the Chathams in Madison was held this past weekend, and it was a great success. The food trucks had to leave early because they ran out of food. That's how well attended it was. And I heard the performances were wonderful. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it. And hopefully we can host in the township next year. It's our turn on rotation. The Mayor's Wellness Committee is working with the Senior Center, Juniper Village, Madison Y, and they'll reach out to Avenues in Motion, which used to be Trans Options, but this year they're kind of focusing on senior safety transport, including walking groups and other transport initiatives. They'll also continue, I don't know if folks remember, their big push last year was the Conversation of Your Life about end-of-life planning, so they're going to continue to push out that information to help residents. They wanted to let me know about a bike rodeo at the Farmers Market on October 1st from 10 to 12, and a sustainability fair September 24th from 8 to 1. And on Monday, October 17th at 5:30 at the Library of the Chathams, there's a Take Control of Your Health initiative for adults 55 plus. It's a free 2.5-hour program held each week for 6 weeks, and refreshments will be served. So again, that you can reach out to the library to get more information. I think that's all the updates I have.
Thank you. Committeewoman Fondaco?
Yes, I have some reports from the DPW. Repairs on irrigation system on all the recreation fields. They completed road striping for stop bars and crosswalks. They laid out soccer on both fields at Esternay Field, ran wire for new recreation office, repaired 9/11 Memorial Rock. They installed new emergency exit lights in Town Hall, power washed all the bleachers on rec fields and playground at Town Hall, removed fence around the skate park, continued LED upgrades to traffic lights, started to retrofit lights at WPC to LED, cut back brush behind Colony Tennis, continued to remove ash trees at Shunpike Field, continued to cut back vegetation on the right-of-way with the flail mower, and they started crack sealing. Added stone to the parking lot over at Colony Tennis, and routine maintenance on recreation fields and township-owned properties. That's quite a bit, I think. The Historical Society, I just can offer that they will be open on the first Sunday of each month from 2 to 4 p.m. The Environmental Commission met, and that they're working with the Great Swamp Watershed for the townwide garage sale on Saturday, October 15th from 9 to 2. The registration is on the Great Swamp Facebook page in order to have your address appear on their map. The Environmental Commission will be participating at the Sustainability Fair. The Pollinator Garden is doing well, and they discussed the pocket park on Shunpike Overflow parking area. All agreed it was a great plan, especially since it's an all-volunteer endeavor. And now with the Art League of the Chathams, we set up a show today, and it'll be on display until December 8th. And this Sunday from 2 to 4 p.m. in the afternoon is the reception, and we have refreshments. So I hope you'll all come. And that's it.
Thank you. Committeeman Lois?
I have nothing to report, Mayor.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Hamilton?
Well, on the public safety front, the mayor mentioned at the outset that it's a very informative, well-attended presentation that some of the officers were, stuff to put on for the community last production stuff. The attendance won't get ready to mayor said other than see it and the follow-up that I know from the chief that he heard after the fact, and there's additional information available that through the police department if anybody's interested. The big library of the Chathams book sale book donation is this Saturday. It's a big event, big fundraiser. Is that not correct, Maureen? Yeah. And so obviously that's a big event of the year, and, strongly encourage, anybody who has something that they can contribute to that always very successful sale and help of the Friends of the Library to do so. And that's all I have this week.
Thank you. Mr. Shihadi, do you have a report? Did I say it right? All right.
Mayor, besides what we discussed in exec and some items for later on in the agenda.
Okay. Mr. King
I have nothing important.
and Mr. LeConte.
Alex asked me to make note of the fact that the FiOS broadcast is still screwy. We are working on trying to get that fixed, but it's still a complicated effort.
Okay. Sounds good. Then we will move right into our hearing. Oh, yeah, he's not meeting tonight. We're going to move right into our hearing of citizens. Currently, the committee room is open to the public, and we look forward to having you join us. Additionally, this meeting is being made available for public participation remotely. If you're watching cable TV on Comcast Channel 29 or FiOS Channel 26, you can participate in the public comment section of this meeting by dialing the phone numbers which are listed on the agenda and which are shown on your TV screen. Please dial *9 to raise your hand. If you're watching via Zoom, you may speak during the public comment session by following the Zoom instructions to raise your hand. Whether in person or online, when you are recognized to speak, please say your name, spell your last name, and give your street. As a reminder, all public comments will be limited to 5 minutes. Rather than use any of your time answering questions, we will wait until you finish speaking before responding. Each member of the public will be limited to 1 comment during the public comment period. Written comments submitted to the township clerk before 3 p.m. today will be read during the public comment sessions. Written comments are subject to the same guidelines as oral comments. Duplicative written comments may be summarized rather than read in full, according to the guidelines issued by the New Jersey Division of Local Government Services. Greg, were there any written comments?
Yes, I do have one. This is from a Dan Nialis on Yarmouth Road. I hope I pronounced his last name correctly. And it reads as follows. On February 8th, I addressed the Township Committee regarding a setback and zoning issue on Yarmouth Road and asked the Township Committee to look into the matter. Specifically, the knockdown and rebuild of the house located at 20 Yarmouth Road is halfway closer to the street than neighboring houses, i.e. prior to the rebuild, the setback was consistent for all houses on the street. The rebuild of 20 Yarmouth resulted in the house being built ahead of the existing houses so that the half of the new house is now forward the setback line. As discussed in February, Yarmouth Road is located in the R4 zone, which, as you're aware, the space between houses is tighter. When I contacted the construction department, they stated that the township zoning code only requires a 25-foot setback. As raised in February, there is a footnote 9 in the code that I believe requires maintaining of the existing setback for new construction. If there are 3 or more developed lots on the same side of the street within 200 feet of any particular undeveloped lot. So the reason for my follow-up is that it appears that nothing has been done to address this issue. The zoning code is exactly the same as February, which leaves the homeowners of the township vulnerable for other houses to be constructed that do not maintain the existing setback line. Imagine driving down a street where houses are unaligned, i.e. Forward and back of each other. As previously communicated to the Township Committee, I've attempted to have this issue clarified, addressed since September 2011. At the time, the 20 Yarmouth Road Foundation was moved forward of the existing setback line. I've sent numerous email communications to the Township Committee and employees. I am again asking the committee address the issue to prevent a reoccurrence. P.S. The homeowners on the street and visitors continue to comment how this was permitted to be approved. Dan Ellis, Yarmouth Road, and then he includes an excerpt from the February 8th committee meeting, which you've all seen in the minutes.
Okay.
So John's not on the line because I guess,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
really a question for Mr. Rushkey, but he's not on.
I visited the property today. I'm gonna coordinate with Mr. Rushkey. First blush of reading it, it is gonna have to be driven largely by the planning board because of land use. So, we'll coordinate with the planning board chair and try to move this along.
Wonderful, because Mr. Nealis, I think, he's been great. They recognize in that community, they're not going to fix the house that's there, but they want to make sure nobody else has to kind of have that situation. So I appreciate that he's been following up. So yeah, that would be great if we can get that done.
And I believe Mr. Rushkey received that email as well.
Well, thank you. Okay, in person, is there anybody?
Hi, Maureen Kelly, Mountain Avenue. I have a couple of questions and first a statement. The reason I came in person was because last meeting, the Zoom was so bad, it was hard to hear. It was terrible. I understand we had a lot of money from Comcast to try to fix this, and it has not been done competently. So anyway, I'm here. Most of my concerns right now are really about the planning board. And I have a couple of asks about that. The planning board should be having its meetings also available on Zoom. So many people in the community attended them when they were on Zoom last year, especially last year and some this year. And I think it's a disservice to the community to not have that. Now, I did go to a planning board meeting to try to ask for this, but the chairman, Kevin Sullivan, just shut me down and said I wasn't allowed to make any public comment. I could only make a comment about one of the hearings they were doing. So my second ask would be for the planning board to routinely put on their agenda a public comment period, because I think it's important that person doesn't always have something to say about a particular case, but to be able to comment about the operations of the planning board. And I felt it was a disservice that was done. So the third thing would be, for some bizarre reason, after our prior administrator got it so that those planning board documents were all reduced and lots less paperwork, suddenly they increased them. So I don't, as a former member of the Environmental Commission, I kind of think this is a bad way to go. So I just want to comment on that. But really, so many people would like those planning board meetings to be held on Zoom. So many more people could attend. And I think it would be in service of the community to allow that to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. So with the first issue was the communications. I know, do you have an update on the communications equipment? I know I'm getting notifications that a lot of people still can't hear. On our
I'll try, maybe
Zoom.
this might help a little bit better for the time being, but Mayor, I have been meeting with some vendors to try and have all the upgrades and the the infrastructure to broadcast without any issue and to stream and to record both on television and online worked out. I am expecting some proposals this week, and then can move ahead with bringing in a firm, hopefully, that will help us upgrade and move forward. We've also been in touch with Verizon to upgrade our broadcast to HD and resolve that issue. So there are a number of things in the works. I apologize to the public for whatever the issues have been in the past, but please bear with us. We are working on it, and I don't want to say it'll be done in a month, but we're working on it, and I think over the next 1 to 3 months we should see significant improvement.
Yeah, I think the biggest complaint I hear right now is just audio is the main one that I've been getting. So,
And I mean, the complaint is the audio for sure, but the video is
Yeah.
embarrassing.
yeah, I know.
For a town like Chatham, go online and it's just a yellow tint over everything and very pixelated. You'll all look like animated characters
Right.
on there. So we're
Right.
gonna improve all of them. The equipment that's here has tremendous capability, but there's some bottlenecks in different areas that we hope to resolve soon.
Okay.
Is there
Thank
something
you.
else?
It was
comment
just the
on?
planning board. Honestly, I agree.
I will speak with the planning board attorney
Okay.
about just making sure that there is a public comment portion on that agenda.
Is it,
Um,
or at the very least have it Zoom or something?
I
Yeah,
mean,
I
I'll
think
defer to the town
that's
attorney to
a-
advise on there, but that is really their an
That's their-
autonomous
that's
board and their
their right.
decision. You don't have that. I don't think you have the ability to mandate to them to
Right.
do that. So
I would be in support of that. It's not required, right? Mm-hmm. Right.
Microphone.
And the planning board, again, they run their own meetings,
Mhm.
so they'd have to do it, but with regard to a public portion, every public meeting from every board or quasi board needs to have that, so usually it's in the beginning,
Mhm.
just like yours, so, Z and I spoke, and he said he'd reach out to the planning board attorney.
Okay.
And while Zoom is a nice to have, it's certainly not required for
Right.
open public meetings compliance.
No, I understand that. I do think it is nice to have, when possible, at the very least. So. All right. Is there anybody else? Is there any hand raised on Zoom? All right, last call. Going, all right. Well, then we will be closing the public hearing of citizens and we'll be moving on to the public hearing and the final adoption of ordinance 2022-10, number of plans required for submittal of land use applications. So this was the ordinance that we went back and forth. Actually, can I get a motion to?
Oh, we should have the public hearing
Oh,
first.
public hearing first. Okay. Then there's public hearing on this. Can we open the public hearing? Anyone? All right, we will be closing the public hearing. And can I get a motion to adopt this ordinance?
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, a discussion. I know we went back and forth on this for a couple of meetings and essentially we've decided on leaving it basically up to the committees or the boards themselves to determine their number of copies that they wanted, because some board members requested it digital, some board members wanted paper copies. And that was pretty much the reasoning.
Yeah, Mayor, just as a reminder to the committee and to the public, this request generated with the Zoning Board of Adjustment. The Planning Board was content having everything digital. The Zoning Board, in order to facilitate going back to having actual normal in-person meetings, they like having paper to look at, things that are to scale. So they were the ones that wanted to be able to go back to having more open meetings, and paper will help them to do that. And the ordinance was written as it was to have still the minimum for 4 copies. So that way the board professionals get a paper copy and one for the office.
Mhm.
If the particular board wants more, they can get as many as they need for each member. But that's, as you mentioned before, that's at the board's discretion. So I expect planning board will keep it at just the 4. Zoning board, at least for the time being, will require more, but that may change in time as members become more content with PDFs.
That seems to make sense to me, simply because honestly, especially the zoning board, we have a hard time getting volunteers to join their zoning board. And if they want a paper copy, okay, I'll give them a paper copy. We just need volunteers. So that's also a plug if anybody wants to volunteer for the zoning board. Does anybody else have any comments there?
Yeah, no, just.
Yes,
Oh, so Mr. Larson, go ahead.
thank you. I just have to just say that the 15 copies for plots and large printouts that can't be easily reproduced That makes a lot of sense. The one thing that doesn't make sense though is the stormwater reports. The stormwater reports are rarely read by anyone other than the engineer. They could be 50 to 90 pages easily. And when you're producing 15 of those, you're producing basically an entire box of paper, an entire 5,000 sheets, which could be very wasteful. That's the only part of this that I don't like as an accommodate, that could potentially continue to be confusing, and that we would end up with an entire ream of an entire box of paper rather that no one actually reads or uses except for the engineer.
That's something that could probably be handled administratively by the board manager.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way this was rewritten, because initially because the zoning board of adjustment wanted more copies, initially this was written for 15 copies, but that was, we reminded everybody last year that the planning board and the township committee celebrated knocking the number down to 4 copies. So this was an accommodation to allow flexibility, but I agree, wherever we can encourage reduced use of paper, that we would like to see that happen.
And with the current number of zoning board members, I think we'd only be asking people for 10 copies rather than the full 15. So,
And it says
they're,
up to 15 is the.
yeah, but it would be less depending on how many
Yeah.
board members want the paper copy.
Yeah.
You see, the plots have the summary information that are in the application. So it would, I don't know if it makes sense to actually have a word change here, or if our staff could just take note to make this change administratively in policy. There's no reason to produce those stormwater reports in such abundance. They're pages and pages of calculations.
I don't see why doesn't this give us the flexibility to sit there and say, okay, you only need to provide one copy of that? Under what section is this under?
Mark, what section?
Well,
is
it's not. It just says, because the application, it says the application, and the application includes the stormwater drainage analysis.
That to me seems like it could be done administratively.
Yeah, if we only need a paper copy for the engineer, then we can, leave it at that. It doesn't have to be, the 15. Yeah, we can get PDFs if the board members are content with PDFs of that particular report.
And I think your board secretary, either the zoning or the planning board, when they do the compliance and they get the copies in, they could talk to the different applicants, because some applicants are bigger than others.
Right.
A residential, I agree, you don't want to put that burden on a homeowner. If, there's not a lot of big development in Chatham Township, but if there were, then those are usually businesses that you do need additional information, and they're complex. They go through multiple days. So it is good to give flexibility to the board secretaries. They'll know what their board members want and usually require.
All right, can we move on to a vote?
Mrs. Ewald,
Yes.
Mrs. Fandacco,
Yes.
Mr. Lois,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton, and Mayor Felice.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, now we are moving on to the introduction of ordinances. So our first one is establishing our bylaws. We made up some changes to our bylaws from the last meeting. Stacy and I guess just say committee woman Ewald and I met together and went through each section of the bylaws, trying to just make for a smoother and more efficient and effective meeting. Essentially, the main, I guess I should do a motion to introduce first. Sorry, I do that a lot. Can I get a motion to introduce?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. All right. So that's kind of where we're at. The big things that I would like to point out, one of them would be the addition. We talked about possibly adding workshop meetings. And the main reason for this type of meeting would be to have everybody's input in creating the agenda for the formal township committee meeting. So as it is right now, we design the agenda. It's usually myself, it's our administrator, it's our a township attorney, and it's our clerk. What this would do, would bring in the whole committee to create the agenda as well as our department heads. So if there's issues that come up in each of our departments, we can have a plan for it and work it all out in a workshop meeting. This item is more in discussion. We can talk about it more in our discussion items this evening, but I just wanted to mention that. Additionally, in the changes that I have on the standing committees for the township, for us on the township committee, we added an administration, personnel, and communications committee. We combined that and left finance without administration, since the finance committee is really such a busy committee in itself. They can't really take on the additional role of administration. And then we also created a recreation committee to really try and improve our recreation. And what else did we do? Oh yeah, the hearing of citizens. So we are bringing back the additional hearing of citizens. So we will have a hearing of citizens at the beginning of the meeting and one at the end. They will be 3 minutes each. And I'm pulling up. Those were the main changes. Anybody have any?
And we're just talking about introducing this, which means the members of the community will have an opportunity to review these and everything, and we'll have public comment on this later at some point. in the
Yes.
future. This is a very introductory kind of thing.
Yes, this is just introducing, so we're planning for the next meeting to have the hearing of citizens on this, on these bylaws, and to adopt at the next meeting was the plan.
And the provision that was formerly in the bylaws about the fair and open process is being taken out of the bylaws and becoming the standalone ordinance that's next on the agenda for discussion.
Yes, so there was a section of our old bylaws that had a fair and open process to be done every 3 years, which, to be honest, is not even allowed. So we took that out and made it a separate ordinance where we will be doing a fair and open, but we can discuss that at their next ordinance discussion. But we took that out so we can actually make it a working one that's legal.
Well, and the other reality was, way back when that was implemented, it was because there wasn't a competitive bid process in place. So it was trying to put it in, and the administrator at the time, in order to manage those bids, because there's about 27 and now maybe more like 33 professional contracts. In order to manage that bid cycle, had done that rotating 3 years. Mr. Shoddy's perfectly comfortable with bidding out all those contracts annually, which is great. So it's nice to be able to move into that direction. So that's a separate ordinance on the agenda.
I have a concern about the recreation portion of this and its compliance with our current ordinances. Has that been reviewed?
Has the recreation, what do you mean? It's so it'd be a standing committee. Z, could you talk a little bit about the recreation standing committee, not the joint record?
Right. So
Right.
just to clarify for the governing body and the public, that committee is just one of 5, or rather, right now you have 4 committees, we'll call them subcommittees, standing committees of the governing body, to act as liaisons and overseers of various functions of the municipality. So it's not necessarily affecting or impacting the JRAC or the other recreation provisions in your ordinance. It's simply providing for a subcommittee of 2 of you to act as those liaisons to the rec department and the administration, and now the rec director that we have.
This recreation.
Okay, but
Correct.
Rec is primarily sports for children and stuff like that, but there could be recreational opportunities for adults and seniors
Correct.
or anything else that could be under the purview.
Prior to entering into the agreement, Chatham Borough. I'm sorry, when the township had its own recreation director, that recreation director would do certain trips, trips to the city for kids and for families. In the summertime, schedule concerts, different holiday functions, different things like that, really centric to the township. So I think that's where the thought process was. It would make the recreation in the township stronger, not impact the clubs or sports.
Now, Committeeman Lois, did you have a specific concern?
Yeah, the ordinances that we have that control recreation specify that we need to assign one person, and it doesn't reference the JRAC. It references the recreation program of the Chathams, because, and it was not entirely well done, but they had tried to replace the recreation ordinances with a shared recreation that we share with the borough. So if you look at those ordinances, I'm not sure that the bylaws completely comply with those ordinances, and I'm just concerned that that we do that.
Mr. King, can you speak to
What
that?
what I'll do is I'll look at it. I believe it. This is a more of again, not a sports type recreation. It's more of a
My- for my-
personal and social and
Yeah, that
cultural
was my
recreation.
understanding as well, that it was like you could have one person of those on that standing committee of those two committee members be also on the joint rec, like it doesn't have
But
to
I'll
be.
review it for next.
Okay.
For second read.
Maybe we need to use a different word, a synonym
Right.
of recreation, community activities or something.
Right.
Just to make sure it's perfectly clear.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you still have in your bylaws the provision of an appointment for someone to JRAC. So
Right.
there, this is.
It-
It, that's
two separate
totally
things.
separate, right?
Right, so there is that clarification. This is just in the section of the standing committees of the governing body. So I don't think that there's a conflict, but Mr. King will review. This is just introduction. So, there's still ample time to modify. And if he deems it substantive, then we would just carry it over past that if it needs an amendment, but I think you'll be fine.
Okay, can we get a vote on the introduction of this ordinance?
Mrs. Ewald,
Yes.
Mrs. Fundaco,
Yes.
Mr. Lois,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yeah.
and Mayor Felice.
Yes.
Motion passes. Public hearing will be scheduled for September 27th.
Okay, now we're moving on to ordinance 2022-12, establishing a fair and open process. Can I get a motion to introduce?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Now, I pretty much described this before. Essentially, we moved this out of our old bylaws and made it its own freestanding, fair, and open process that we will be implementing for all of our professionals. I simply just think it's best practices for our professionals to go the fair and open process. Does anybody have any input here?
I do have a question, if I
Yes.
may. This is probably for Mr. King, but if I read this correctly, it strikes me as that it would apply to all boards, not just the Township Committee. Okay, so Board of Health, Planning Board, and Zoning Board would also be held to that standard. So everything would be under this fair and open process, not just the Township Committee professionals. So it actually becomes more transparent than the committee's bylaws.
Correct.
That's correct.
This is, yeah, in an effort to make this as transparent as possible. Is there any other inputs? Otherwise, we'll go to a vote. All right, can we go to vote to introduce this ordinance?
Mrs. Ewald,
Yes.
Mrs. Fundaco,
Yes.
Mr. Lois,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Felice.
Yes.
Motion passes. Public hearing on September 27th.
All right, we are moving on to our consent agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and a roll call?
Mrs. Ewald,
Yes.
Mrs. Fundaco,
Yes.
Mr. Lois,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Felice.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, now we are moving on to the non-consent agenda. Resolution 2022-267, authorizing agreement with Madison for styrofoam recycling. Can I get a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Shihadi, would you like to explain this a little bit?
I started and with the township and had been in touch with Jessica Romeo from the Environmental Commission, who had advised me that there was an effort underway prior to come to a shared service agreement with Madison to provide for styrofoam recycling, similar to what the borough does. And Madison offers that where residents can drop off their styrofoam. Right now, styrofoam is not an item that's typically recyclable with your curbside collection because it has to be processed in a special way. Unfortunately, because of what I've learned is our proximity to the swamp and some environmental concerns, that it posed a little bit of a challenge for our DPW to accept styrofoam at Tanglewood, where we accept other recyclables. So I had reached out to my counterpart, Mr. Cody, who I've known for quite a while in Madison, set up a meeting. They were very amenable to providing for this service. The only cost to the township is to contribute to the transportation of those recyclables from Madison to the facility that receives them in Springfield on Route 22, which is fine for us to commit to a driver every so often they need one. And other than that, it would allow residents to go over to the Madison Recycling Center, drop off their recycling. Before people rush out and do that, please don't take this meeting as an invitation to do that just yet. We have to execute the agreement, notify our colleagues in Madison of that. I believe their meeting is tomorrow night, and we'll approve it. And then we're going to embark on a public education campaign to make sure that our residents know exactly what styrofoam and how it's to be taken. Ms. Romeo and the Environmental Commission will be assisting with that. So be on the lookout on our website, social media, and around town for that information.
Part of that is that we have to educate our residents on how their facility accepts styrofoam, and it's not, there's no charge to the township, so it's a win-win.
And at the appropriate time, we'll also want to make sure our residents know where the facility is.
Right.
Well, I think that's wonderful.
Yep.
All right, can we get a roll call?
Mrs. Ewald,
Yes, and I just want to say a quick thanks to the Environmental Commission, to Jessica Romeo, Mr. Shahadi, and Committeewoman Faldaco, because she's been chasing this down for a while too. So
Mrs. Fundaco,
Yes.
Mr. Lois,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Felice.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, now, next is Resolution 2022-268, Projects and Possibilities List. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, that motion dies. Now we're moving on to Resolution 2022-269, authorizing newly certified lifeguard reimbursement. Is there a motion to adopt? All right, that motion dies. Now we're going on to discussion. Okay, so first was the workshop meetings. I had briefly just mentioned it at our previous meeting. This was something that was brought to our attention by our administrator and our attorney as possibly a way to make our meetings smoother. We figured we might want to give this a try. Mr. Shihadi, do you want to give a little bit more of an explanation?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. So workshop meetings are an excellent format and opportunity for elected officials, governing bodies like yourselves to game plan with department heads, with administration policy, as well as, projects and tasks, but also more importantly, legislation such as ordinances and resolutions. This is a venue for you to sit around cordially around a table as opposed to a dais more formally, but more informally, look across the table from one another and really give direction to the township attorney, the township administrator, the clerk and department heads in terms of research you may need to develop an ordinance, as well as making sure that the ordinance is developed and formatted and legal before it's introduced. So that way you're not wasting a lot of time in public, kicking them from meeting to meeting to meeting. So a lot of towns do that, and it tends to make the process a lot more streamlined, transparent, efficient, and cordial. So the goal is to implement this when we discuss this in the bylaws meeting, at least on a trial basis in October. The way some towns do it is they double up their meetings. So if they've got 2 regular meetings, they'll also add 2 workshop meetings. Some towns will have a workshop meeting just prior to their agenda meeting for an hour. Others will select their first meeting of the month as a workshop meeting and then the second meeting of the month as a regular meeting. So to trial this, from the discussion in the bylaws meeting, you have 2 meetings in October, but only 1 in November and 1 in December. So the thought is to trial this for the first meeting in October, and we'll meet in a location in the building that can hold us around a table, and the department heads will have their reports prepared in advance, and then highlight 3 items, but also talk to you about what ordinances or resolutions they see on the horizon for the next 1, 2, and 3 months. So that way, okay, in about 2 months, we're going to be expecting a cap ordinance. In 2 months, we're going to be expecting resolutions to hire SLEOs. We might be expecting a promotion, and you can talk about them and get a better understanding of what's on the agenda in advance. So I do think that you'll find it works very well if the meeting, the format for it is done well, and the meeting is run with that in mind. My understanding is that workshop meetings were tried actually here in Chatham at one point, I believe in 2000, and when was that?
Well, it was, prior to 2006, we had real actual workshop meetings. We got away with from that when we reached a point where all meetings started being held in this room. That's when the lines started to be blurred between what was a workshop and what was a regular meeting.
Yep.
And then, because of that blurring of the lines, we wound up having just regular meetings. But personally, I think it would be good to go back to workshop meetings as well as regular.
And the goal would be to distinguish them by whether it's a different room, but obviously a different agenda format, so it just doesn't look the same. And then you feel like you're just doing double the work, essentially just a rubber stamp. So it's intended to be collaborative. It's intended to be, a much more deliberative process, but also transparent. So, right now, and also make sure that you're all on the same page and that there aren't just silos between, various department heads or employees and certain members of the governing body. So I do appreciate that you've made an attempt to put this in the bylaws and to trial this, and I will commit to making it a success for you.
Thank
And
you.
Mayor?
So we're not like committing by any means that all of our meetings are going to, or like 1 meeting a month or whatever. We're not committing to that right now. We just put in our bylaws that it's an option to have. And so we figured we'd give it a try. And it
Pressure
could
is
just
on.
fall flat. I have no idea. It could just be an entirely waste of time. And if that's the case, then we won't do it again. But we figured it can't hurt. We can give it a try and see what happens.
Mayor, just for transparency purposes, we should also make it clear that these workshop meetings would still be subject to the Open Public Meetings Act. Public would be allowed to attend, and there would be the hearing of citizens at these meetings as well.
Thank you, Greg. Yes, all of that. But yes, you're.
I just didn't want anyone to get scared.
100%. It's open to the public, and there will be a hearing of citizens.
And it would also hopefully streamline your regular meetings, so that way, by the time you get to the regular meeting, everything has been hashed out at the workshop.
Well, Greg said what I was gonna say, which is, yeah, just to make it clear for everybody that these are not in lieu of public these are public meetings in a different format. you
Correct.
know, Where there's, the role is gonna be to work collaboratively to streamline substantive action for another meeting. So it wouldn't be necessarily adopting, ordinance or anything, but still public meetings,
And-
obviously subject to public reporting and the public being welcome to attend.
There may still be some actions taken at workshop meetings. We would just try to minimize that. There may be some like routine items on a consent agenda, but the regular meeting would be where you would be voting on introduction and adoption of an ordinance in a more finalized form rather than debating and having to make changes before taking action.
Thanks for clarifying. Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, if we have nothing else to discuss on that, let's go to our last discussion item, the letter to PSENG regarding wildflower seedlings. Mr. Shihadi. Can I have gotten it right at all this time?
No, it works. It's
Okay.
fantastic. So the wildflower seeding program, and I apologize because I know there's been a lot of folks involved in things, whether it was the styrofoam recycling. This is another one. If there were people prior to my arrival that have been involved, I don't mean to neglect them, but I will highlight a gentleman by the name of Mr. Basralian who contacted me about this around the same time that Mr. Everton Scott from PSCNG also reached out to me. It seemed like there had been some effort prior on getting a wildflower seeding program in the areas of the high transmission lines in certain areas. So right now they're just grass fields, and in an effort to be more environmentally friendly, help the pollinator community, birds and bees, and to really beautify. I think wildflowers really are beautiful. You see them on the parkway in certain areas. PSCNG is very much willing to do so. They do that in other areas, but before they do, they want to make sure that any residents that are abutting or adjacent to don't have concerns, and the community understands that wildflowers, like other flowers, they die eventually. The flowers will fall and you'll just see the stems and the leaves, they'll turn brown. And to some people, it may look that it's not maintained. So the PSCNG's concern was they want to make sure we're okay with that, because grass, they mow it and, it looks clear. The wildflowers, they're going to die, but they'll come back every year. So Mr. Basralian helped by putting together a list of the properties that would abut this, but to be clear, there's a buffer. They've got, most of them have a fence or trees, and then a good patch of grass. So where there's grass, it'll remain grass, and then a planting of wildflowers in that area. They requested that a letter from the township come to PSNG confirming and acknowledging that we understand that and we still want it. I did put together a letter with Mr. Basralian's help that went out to the almost 24 residents that would be nearby, letting them know, and if they had any concerns to reach out. That letter, I think, just went out on Friday or Monday. And so unless there's any objections, I would just seek your yes or no to send out this letter to PSCNG on behalf of the township that, yes, we want this program.
Yeah, I got a letter.
Oh, you did? Okay. You didn't reach out to me, committee woman.
Was there have you heard any objections?
I have not yet, but again, I'd like to give it some time. They just got it. I mean, they're in no rush, but they'll probably be planting. You can plant the wildflowers usually in the early spring or in the fall. You know this probably better than me.
What do I know better?
The planting of the wildflowers, you're in the garden club, right? Or no?
Oh, yeah, they usually do it in fall.
Fall, yeah. So we have a little bit of time still. I'll give it another week or two, but I'll send out that letter if there's no objection to it.
Yeah, I wanted to thank Mr. Basralian for his efforts. He had sent a note kind of explaining what was approved. To me, the win, because they're doing wildflowers, because I know up on our hill in the right of way, we wanted wildflowers. So we know they're doing that. We know where there's lawn, that they wanted to maintain the lawn. But it's my understanding they're removing invasive species and putting in the wildflowers in that area. So that's definitely a win. So
Right.
I just want to thank Mr. Basralian for his efforts there.
Have they done this anywhere already?
Not in Chatham. That PSNG hasn't done it in Chatham, but they have done it in other.
They did it in
Other-
Chatham Borough.
Did they do it in the
A
borough?
small little patch.
Yeah.
They've done the seeding, definitely, because we have the hill, I'm up by the hill.
I
where the
noticed
power
just
line
the
is.
other day, it seemed like there was flowers growing down on the south side of Southern Boulevard across from the fire.
That,
station.
that's correct, Mr. Hamilton. They have done it there where we have wetlands. And this is doing it in an uplands area.
Drive by, take a look at it. It's
Yeah.
pretty large.
That's why my,
There's a ton of flowers down there.
yeah, my understanding is the above and beyond was that they were gonna remove the invasive species and put in the wildflowers there, so that's great. But yeah, we have them by us too.
Well, I would also like to thank Mr. Brazilian for all of his efforts on this. Is there anything else?
No, I mean, possibly at a future meeting, workshop meeting, we'll be talking about, I was even bouncing this idea off Rich and DPW. There's a lot of green grass patches here that have to be maintained. I would like to see more of those converted to wildflowers. One, it reduces the DPW's maintenance of having to mow these, but also adds more pollinators. We've got plenty of land for that here, so.
That would be nice.
Sounds good. Thank you
But that's
very
all.
much. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.